All right, there's the old filler neck from the tank that came out of this that I believe is leaking. I don't think I can reuse it. And this, it's pretty hard to get that off there. This is just an original neck. Somebody put it in this spot, drilled a hole so that you could get the gas in, and welded this on. It leaks around the edges of this, so if you overfill this tank, it would come out, you know, between the filler neck and the tank itself. So it's not a great option. It does have a pretty good low look to it. But I just don't think that it's feasible. I think it needs to come up probably a ½ inch to an inch at least. Let me grab the new tank and see how that fits. All right, so I laid the gas tank in on the body, and I've got the hood in place roughly where it belongs. I'd like to have this sticking up just enough so that you can get a hand on the cap. The trouble here is this body curves in right on this line. A lot of these cars, when people build them, they put a center fill, and they'll just put a big round thing here that you can open up and go directly into the top of the tank. The body already has a hole here, so we're gonna stick with that. I'm just trying to figure out how low I want to make this and still have it functional. I've put some masking tape on it. I've run around it with a marker to try to get the height of where the body actually is. And then I think we got to try to figure out what we're going to do here. Whether I just cut it, drop it down, and then weld it, or if I remove this filler neck altogether from this tank, shorten it, and then drop it down and re-solder it the way that they had it. A little bit of a question, so I got to think on this one. But obviously we can't leave it like that. It looks like there's a Coke can sitting on the hood, so not great. So we'll figure something out. Okay, so this is where I'm at. I've got this, so we know this line here is even with the body, or relatively close to even with the body around here. I've done some measuring. When I put this cap on, it actually twists and drops down. I have this clamp at approximately, I don't know if you can even see that, but it's approximately ½ inch below the cap. So if I can get the top edge of this clamp, get this out of here, top edge of this clamp to be down here, so take out that much of it, this whole cap is going to sit up 1.5 inches above the body to the top of the cap. Bottom of the cap will be 1/4 inch off the body. So if you can imagine that, it'd be top of the cap would be way down here. So I think that's about what I want. I lifted the hood up a little bit and kind of get it to this level here, which I don't know if I can do that right now, but everything's pretty tight fit with this. Get this down. So it would put it approximately somewhere around there is where it would put this up over the top of the hood. It could probably go a little lower, but where the body tapers up over here, you're getting tight in this corner, and I would rather not be in a position where this is close to the body again and hard to get open. And sometimes when you put this stuff together, you lose or gain a little bit of distance in here as you're figuring all this out and actually doing the work. If I get too short, not a huge deal, because I can actually put, it should have a piece of rubber between the gas tank and the body anyway, which I probably will add, but you could add a thicker piece in there to just raise this up just slightly. But if it's too high, there's really nothing I can do about that. So that's why I'm trying to really take some time and figure out where this is going to go. And then on top of that, I got to figure out if I just cut this off, cut it off here, and then weld this section back down to here, kind of grind it as smooth as I can get it. The whole gas tank needs to be painted black anyway, just to kind of, you know, coat it with something and just, you know, it's galvanized now, so it's protected from rust, but it's definitely, you know, it's like a cheaper galvanized coating, so it really needs to have some paint put on it on top of that. So the whole neck will be black anyway, so I should be able to weld or maybe silver solder this portion to this portion. I got to do a little more thinking on that and maybe some research too. The other problem I have is this is a vent tube sticking out the side here, if you can see it. That vent tube is going to have to be relocated. I can either drill a hole and then stick it in down lower and have the rubber hose come forward underneath the hood and drain out under the car, which would be ideal. But if you look in here, the amount of space that I have between this cut line and then where this actually starts to bell out to join with the tank is a pretty small amount. So it may end up being you clean this whole thing up. If I drill a hole for that, it's going to sit, you know, I'm a little wider here anyway, but it's going to sit down in here. I don't know if it would interfere with a grommet or anything else. The other option I have is to relocate this to a different position on the tank, obviously keeping it high up. But that's something I got to kind of look at and see what's going to make sense to do. So I'm going to pull this all back apart and we'll start looking at it again with the tank out of the car. All right, so I'm getting ready to cut down this neck. What I've got on here is just a plain old pipe clamp. I try to find the widest one I have that'll fit on it. If you tighten down a pipe clamp on a piece of pipe, it generally will grab all the sides and give you a very straight edge here. And then what I'm going to do with this one is I'm going to scribe it with a metal scribe, and that will give me a line on the piece of pipe so that I can go by that in order to cut this. Okay. And then if you take the clamp off, you could leave it on and you could cut basically right at the line. I've done that before too. It's a little difficult because the, you know, where you tighten up the clamp kind of gets in the way. But doing it this way is going to give me, or should give me, a somewhat readable line. And then I will show you how I plan to cut this. We'll see if it'll work out on this. All right, my basic plan for this thing is I have a muffler tubing cutter. This is a, I don't know, it's a zippy one. It's pretty old. You can find them used. I don't even know if they make new ones. This one's still pretty sharp, and I just oiled up all the wheels so that they should slide. This one actually feels tight again. Yeah, that one I gotta do again. Basically, this is like a tubing cutter that you would use to cut, you know, brake line or copper water pipe, you know, if you're doing HVAC type systems. And it's got the same type of cutter in it. It's just got 4 of them. And the idea is you take this thing. The hardest part is getting it there and getting this to start cutting an even straight line is the toughest thing. And that's why I like to scribe a line so that you can hopefully get it to sit into that spot that you scribed. Actually, I'm going to cut the top. I think I'm going to cut the top first. So then when I cut the bottom, I'll have, it'll be still connected to the tank and I'm not fighting it. All right, let me just put a little bit of pressure on it. let me try to make at least one line around. So this type of tool is made for cutting exhaust pipe. And basically what this piece of pipe is that's sticking out of here is essentially exhaust pipe. This is walking around on me a little bit. It's like starting it's like threading it almost. So let me reset that and we'll try again. There we go. I think I'm cutting an even line here. That should be far enough through. I'm just stuck right on one edge, so I'll just snap that off. So what that does is that, and you can see, maybe you can see, it started, I had it kind of a little crooked, and the cut's a little crooked more than I'd like to. But it started to kind of walk around the pipe and basically create threads on it. So getting it lined up the correct way to begin with is the important part. So let's try that one. I can put it in the belt grinder and kind of smooth it out a little. This bottom one is going to be a little more important because I don't want to lift the gas tank up and put that in the belt sander. So, but you do want to try to get them as square as you can, because welding it back together is going to be a whole lot easier if your seam is flat all the way around, unless you're trying to put an angle on it, and then obviously it's okay to have a angle cut. Okay. See if we can get this started. Doing pretty good. Okay, there we go, zippy cut, getting that off there for us. This cut looks fantastic. So that's basically how much we're shortening this. And obviously, like I mentioned, I'm cutting the vent tube off of here, so I'm gonna have to relocate and put another vent tube on this. My next step on here is obviously to deburr this. I need to deburr both sides. Actually, that fits pretty good. I'm probably gonna throw this on the body and just make sure that that height is good. And I'll clean up both sections. This does have a galvanized coating on it. So all of that galvanized coating needs to be cleaned off before we start welding this. It's not that you can't weld through it. It's that when you weld galvanized coating and you heat it up and burn it, it actually releases, I forget what kind of gas, I'll put that in there, but it's basically a poisonous gas is what's released out of here. And if you breathe too much of it, you end up getting sick from it, and it kind of gets into your system, and it takes like a day or two to get out. It actually can be fatal if you do too much of it. So I really pay attention to that, and I try to make sure I'm not breathing in galvanized coating. So we'll get this lip cleaned up, get everything fixed up. And I'll probably try to see if I can stuff a rag in here or something. Try to get as few metal filings in the gas tank as possible. I'm gonna have to flush this whole thing out when I'm done anyway. But this is a brand new gas tank. So this has never had gas in it. So welding on it is very easy to do. This is just sheet metal at this time, even though it is a gas tank, it's basically sheet metal. If this was a used gas tank, you do not want to put a flame near it. You do not want to weld on it. Any of that in order to do that, that's a whole different process. You need to make sure that you've purged all the gas vapors out of it and everything. And that's a whole different thing. I've welded gas tanks before, and you can do it. You can do it successfully, but you really have to be careful, because even when you think this thing has no fuel vapors in it, there can still be something in there. And if that ignites, it can blow out the gas tank. It could, I guess technically it could explode the gas tank, but it can be very, very dangerous. So what I'm going to show you here is a brand new gas tank. So this has never had fuel in it. It may have some shipping oils on it that might be slightly flammable, but no more than any other, mill type metal that you would buy, sheet metal or anything else. So it really should be totally fine to weld on, but I'll get this cleaned up and then I'll bring you back. I'm not going to show you cleaning that up because it's not very interesting. So, all right. So I've got this all cleaned up. I've got the inside edges all deburred. I actually ran this on the belt sander just for a little bit, just to kind of clean up the edge on it. It does have, when I cut it, you can probably see it. It actually has an angle that's high over here on this part, because if you remember, I was having the problem with it walking around. Which I also cleaned up with a wire wheel. This angle actually worked out in my favor. It wasn't intentional, but it did work out in my favor. What I've found is with this gas tank in the body and the hood on, if I had cut this perfectly flat, it actually would have been angled, because of the shape of the body, it actually would have been angled too low on the side closest to the fender. So having this a little bit higher, and I've indexed the line here, and I need the highest point here, which I've rubbed off, but we can fix that with another marker. Let me find my high spot here, right here. So I got a mark in there, and I've got a mark here on the side where it needed to be. So basically, with the high spot sitting there, this gives us, it actually angles the top of the neck just a bit, so when the cap's on it, it kind of lines up with the body a little better than being crooked in the hood. So sometimes mistakes end up being good for you. So that's where we're at there. I'm going to make a better mark because that mark is terrible. I'm actually going to make a mark on the inside so I can see it a little better too. I have cleaned off all of the zinc coating, galvanized coating, same thing. And I remembered that it is when you burn galvanized coating, what it is zinc, and what you're getting is you're turning that into zinc gas, and you're breathing it, and that is that's what poisons you. That's what can make you sick, is the zinc gas. So this is where I'm at. I need to figure out a way to hold this in place and get a couple tacks on it. So that's my next step, is to figure that out. See if I can get a tack here and there, and then I'm gonna weld the whole thing all the way around. I've just got a 110 MIG machine set up, and that's what I'm going to use to do this. If the weld looks too fat or it gets too close to the body, I have no problem grinding this down afterwards with the band file and just kind of making it smooth to the point that it kind of looks like there isn't a weld there. That would, to me, that would actually be ideal, rather than having a good or bad looking welder on the top of it. I'd prefer if it was just look like a piece of pipe. So that's my plan. Let me see if I can figure out a way to kind of hold that in place, and I will bring you back. All right, so I don't have anything to really hold that in place. So I'm just gonna try to get one light tack in there to like support it. And then make sure it's square to the both halves of the pipe are square to each other. And then I will put another tack on the other side. They sell like a band that would go around this that has holes going around so that you can tack it and keep everything perfect. I believe they're for like intercooler piping, you know, exhaust header building, that type of stuff. I don't have anything like that sitting here. I tried to use a regular exhaust clamp that had some holes in it. I tried to use a piston ring compressor that I have, a few different versions that I have that have some holes here and there. Nothing seemed to work. The amount of space between the flange and the tank is kind of small now, so it's kind of tough getting anything in there. So we're just gonna kind of hit it and see what happens. All right, so I got that welded. I'm a little fat right here because I actually blew through. I had the welder a little too high. So I got out a piece of copper, got that in there and filled that hole. I'm gonna go around and clean this all up with the band file, and I may still have a hole there that I'm gonna have to just kind of work through and get rid of. But it's on there good. It's pretty hot right now. And on the inside, it actually is pretty smooth all the way down through. So I'm pretty confident that that's not gonna leak. In this situation with this car, you're just gonna fill it up down to here. You'll get a little bit of splash that comes up into the neck, but you're not gonna get, it's not gonna have gas in the neck unless you overfill the car. Generally, you're only gonna fill it to about here anyway. So it's not gonna be anywhere near that, but I'll make sure that it's sealed up pretty good. I'll clean that up now and I'll bring you back. Okay, so we've got that ground out. Let me get you over here. And you can see there's some, like this is where the edge of a weld ends, a little bit in there. But overall, this thing, I mean, it's on there. It's good and solid. It's got a pretty good look going around it. So I'm all right with that. If we look into it, kind of hard to see. You get that one little, see that little fat spot in there? That's where I blew through and had to fill it. And actually you can see there's a pinhole I'm still gonna have to fill. You can kind of go through and look for pinholes, and I don't see any others. There may be a very small pinhole somewhere that you're not getting light from. And I'll probably, I might see if I can pressure test this to, you know, 5 PSI just to see if I have a leak down here. But I got to fix that one pinhole we just found, and then we'll move on to the next step. All right, we get the tank back over at the body. My next step here is I need a vent tube. So the reason you need a vent tube is you think about, really you can kind of chalk it up to like if you've ever used a plastic gas can, especially the newer style gas cans, where when you're pouring it, it like backs up and it's almost like the fuel stops and then you get a bunch of air, blub, blub, blub in, and the fuel starts coming out again, and you just keep doing that over and over again. If you were to punch a pinhole in the backside of that tank up high, it would just allow air in while fuel is coming out, and it would allow a smooth exit of fuel, let's say. Well, it works the same way with a gas tank on a car. You have gravity feeding fuel down the bottom of this tank, through the chassis into the engine, and then, or through the chassis, then back up to the engine, and a fuel pump pulling it. So the problem is you need to be able to allow air to get into this tank to replace all of the fuel that is taken out volume-wise. So you need a vent somewhere. Removing this piece here that was in here stops the fact that we have a vent in the filler neck. Ideally, you want the vent as high as you can possibly make it on the vehicle or on the fuel system, so that you're not losing fuel out of that area in the same spot. What I'm planning here is I'm trying to see where we're level. And obviously this hump here in the front is going to be pretty high. That's probably one of your highest points. Actually, back here is my highest point while it's sitting in the body. And this is assuming the body is completely flat and the chassis is level, because my cart is level. If the back end of the car is sitting a little higher, which is pretty typical in most dune buggies, is you'll have a larger tire in the back. So you'll have a slight rake to it for the most part, or at least with a street buggy. So this measurement that I have right now, and I don't know if you can see this, this bubble or not, but it is way back there. I'd have to bring this up to right there as level. So about a 1/4 inch higher than the front lip of this gas tank is where this rear section is sitting. And it actually seems to be all the way across this piece. So let me grab something and show you. All right, so what I've got to try to figure out this vent. Ideally, I would just, like this hat, I would just stick a little piece of tube or like a bung, a threaded hole, and I would just weld it into the tank over here. I have a TIG welder. I have TIG welded in the past. I have not done it in quite a while, and TIG welding steel I was never necessarily great at. Aluminum a little better, but steel has kind of, for whatever reason, been a little more of a challenge for me. And this is pretty thin steel. I don't think my ability at the moment is good enough to weld a bung in this gas tank. So what I picked up it's from this company CPP. It is basically it's this piece here. My understanding, I've never used one of these, but my understanding of this piece is this is essentially a riv nut in sense, where you have this aluminum bung with a top on it, and the idea is you drill a hole, this fits down in there, you tighten up this bolt, and this will collapse this piece inside the tank. There's a rubber gasket that goes on the bottom. And it's designed to be a return fitting for, if you do like a fuel injection system, you need to have gas go out to the engine and then gas come back that isn't used at a particular PSI. So that's the idea of what this is. I've never used one. I'll be honest, drilling a hole this big into this tank and tightening this thing up in here is a little bit of a scary thought to me, but we're going to give it a go and see what happens. And I figure the worst that happens here is I completely screw this up and I've got a messed up hole over here. If that's the case and it happens, what I'll do is I will get an actual bung that is made for, that would take an NTP fitting in it and give me an elbow or whatever. And I'll take it to a friend of mine that can TIG weld great, and he'll put it in for me. But I think I'm going to try this first just to see if I can basically do everything on this entire project without having someone else jump in and do even a little portion of it. So that's kind of where I'm at. I'm going to drill a hole here. My thought was to put it up high in this position. I'm going to throw the hood back on first to make sure that I have clearance right here, so that this isn't going to touch anything. And then I'm probably just going to put a 90 in here that has a barb fitting on it. And I will run a hose out of here, down and out. And that's your vent. All right, so here's where I'm at with this. I've wiped this whole thing down, at least this whole area, with a cloth to get it clean, just to get shipping oils and stuff off. I'm trying to figure out a place to put this thing where it's not going to be in the way. And I put the hood back on with the gas tank in place. And I've got about an inch and a half above this line before it hits the hood. So putting it on top is probably fine with a 90-degree angle, barb fitting coming over and having a dump hose. I'm thinking, however, that if I put it into this flat area, it'll be easier. This has a little bit of a crown to it. And in order to get to a flat area, I got to start coming down this hill right here, or I got to extend down into here. If I go into this flat area, which the later 68 and up Beetles that have the fill on this side, they actually have a vent tube over on this side too. And when I lay a level across my short neck to here, the top of the neck is actually lower than this top edge. So I would have to fill that neck all the way up to the top, almost to the point of overflowing, before this area here is under the fuel line. I'm hoping that my thought on this and everything is correct. But I'm thinking I'm going to go into this side as high up as I possibly can, and then I will thread in a piece of steel line that comes out to this edge, hoops up, and then slowly tapers down is my plan, because that will make any fuel that enters this will come up to that slope that is higher than the top level of the gas tank, and it'll drain back into the tank before it ends up spilling out. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. I'm going to say that we need to be, if I was to keep this totally flat, and actually let me get the bolt out of it just so that we can make it real. This is one of those things you really want to like double check what you're doing. Like, you can obviously make a mistake here that could cause some problems. But so there's our top and bottom. There's a mark. So let's say we're in the middle. We're right about here somewhere. That's about where I want my hole. And that's going to put this pretty much completely flat on the side of this. The tank is just slightly higher. Obviously it goes in this way, but I need the hole. So I think this is what I'm going to run with. It sucks, but the worst that happens is if I screw this whole thing up, I can have a hole right here that I'm going to have to either put a piece of pipe in and weld and use that as my vent, or absolute worst, I'm going to have to plug a hole and relocate this thing. All of which has to be figured out before this tank goes into the car and the hood goes on, because I don't want to pull the hood back off to fix a leaking tank, or a problematic tank, I guess. So that's kind of where I'm at. I guess we just kind of commit to it and do it. All right. So make a, I'm going to make a pilot hole with an 1/8 inch drill bit. And this gas tank's a little weird to hang on to because it's the bottom of it has got a shape to it. So hopefully this doesn't walk around too much. A little faster. All right, point of no return. We have a hole. So what I've done is I've measured out, and this is a, what size is this? Let's see if that won't stay. This is a 31/64 drill bit, so kind of a weird size. So it's the size in my drill index that is one size below a 1/2 inch. This fitting, I measured out, and it's 0.49, so it's just below 1/2 inch. So I don't really want to put a 1/2 inch hole in this. I would prefer if this was a nice, clean, tight hole. So my thought is to use this drill bit. I'll drill it. If this doesn't fit, I probably will just slightly file it until this slides in exactly right, because I'd rather not have an oversized hole. Sliding off the table, so it's kind of a hard hold here. All right, there's our hole. Looks like a nice clean hole, so that's good. The thought process of not getting metal chips into the tank is completely gone at this point because they're in there. So we'll have to really flush this tank out good. All right, so here's our fitting, and it doesn't fit at all. So let me open up this hole until I get it just right where this just slides in, and I will bring you right back. All right, so we've got our hole all set. I have it so it is literally it's probably as tight as it could be. I can't imagine that getting any tighter than that. So it slides right in, but it slides in easy. It's not getting hung up. I am going to deburr this hole, which is probably going to take a little off, and it feels about the same. So just to get that out of there so that we don't have a lip on the top that is going to affect our gasket is what I'm concerned with. Okay, so the way this thing, according to the directions, works, you've got a rubber O-ring that fits into there. Let me grab my directions, actually. It's one of those times I just don't want to screw the thing up, so I'm trying to be as cautious as I can. Drill the hole, blah, blah, blah. Put the thing in with the gasket on it. Yeah. So you need this will go in. Let's clean this one more time, just so that we have a good sealing surface for this gasket. So this is going to slide in. And then we need to hang on to this with something. They're telling you a 1-inch wrench. I don't have a 1-inch wrench, but I have a 25 millimeter, which is basically a 1-inch wrench. And you've got to hold on to it with that. And then this bolt and washer are going to slide in here, and we're going to tighten them down. And if you've never used a all right, so if you've never used a riv nut, it's just going to collapse this. It's going to collapse this and crush it into there as we tighten this. And I'm hoping it works, because this is like, you get a one-shot thing on this, where once this thing's collapsed, this piece is junk. If it didn't seal correctly, you need to cut it off and get another one, or figure out a different direction you want to go. So I'm going to try to put pressure on this to keep it tight against the tank, and then start tightening it. And I might need a better angle at this. It's already collapsed a hair just from doing that. I'm going to put this up on end, get it reset so that I can hang on to it better. All right, it feels like it's in there pretty good. The instructions basically are telling you to tighten this down. It's going to be real difficult at first, then it's going to get easier, then it's going to get difficult again, and that's when you'll know that the thing is tight. I don't want to over tighten it. It feels pretty tight now, and obviously I can't see into the tank to see where the whole thing has gone into. So what I think I'm going to do is pull this bolt out. See if, I don't know if I can see in there at all to see the, if it wrinkled over or not. Yeah, it looks like it has. Get a light on it. So my next thing here is, this is all tightened up. Everything looks good on it as far as I can tell. I'm gonna probably run a piece of steel line right into this, whether it's whether it needs to have a 90-degree fitting or some kind of, yeah, I gotta look at the size thread on this and figure out what I can do. But basically, I'd like to run a piece of steel line out, come around the corner, come up, over, and then drop back down so that this kind of stays level. When it comes back down, I would like to put this, not that. I bent up this clip basically, if you can see that. And it's basically like the tabs that are on the chassis that hold brake line. I've made it slightly bigger because I'm not sure what line I'm gonna need in here, but either way, no matter what size it is, it's gonna be able to fit on here and hold that steel line onto it. So I'm gonna weld this on there. It shouldn't go through here. It should just, weld this directly to it, and that's it. It won't take a whole lot to put it on, or it shouldn't take a whole lot to put it on. So that's where I'm at. That's what I'm gonna do next. I've cleaned this up. I've sanded it just so that it's ready to accept weld, and the zinc coating is off it. All right, so that's on there, and all that's gonna do is just let me I'll be able to pry it up a little, push the line in and push it back down, and that's gonna give me a spot to hold my steel line, because my plan is the steel line will come to about here, and then from there I'll transfer it to rubber, and I can kind of run it down and fish it underneath the car somewhere so it's out of the way and we should be all set there. So I've got the gas tank set up to try to pressure test this. I've got a glove on this end clamped, and I left where my welded area is exposed so I can see it. I put a fuel sending unit in it. I'm hoping that that actually will hold some pressure, and I've just got a silicone plug in this part. On the other side here, where we've got the fuel outlet, I've got that attached, and I've got a Mighty Vac on here. And my plan here, which is going to take a minute, is to pump this up. You could do this with compressed shop air too, but I've had a few times where I've done this with shop air and it kind of gets out of control, and it either blows the glove apart or, you know, stuff just doesn't work out. So my thought here is I really only need, like, you know, 5 PSI, maybe 10 at the most. So I think I should be able to pump this up. Hopefully. It's just it is a lot of pumping. So pump this up, get it up to that level, and then we can kind of check some of these fittings with some soapy water or something. I let that sit for a while, and then I sprayed some like soapy water cleaner stuff on it so that it would bubble. I'm not seeing any, at least major leaks. It might have some small ones here and there, but I don't think it's really that bad. I now have to, the whole inside of this gas tank needs to be cleaned out. I'm just going to do it with water. I'm going to run a hose through it and flush it out, and then I'm going to let it dry completely, and then I will get some paint on it. All right, guys, I got the gas tank all wiped down with acetone to get the grease off it. Hopefully I got most of it. I am going to use, this is just a Rust-Oleum satin black. So it's an oil-based paint anyway, so any kind of grease or anything that's left on here is fine. It's probably just gonna kind of merge with the paint. I don't think it'll fisheye too bad. I've taped off all my like my inlet outlet type ports that have threads on them that I don't want to get stuff on them. I'm just doing this with brush paint because you're literally, once this is in the body, the way Dune Buggies are, the hood is attached to it in a manner that it doesn't open, you don't see it. None of this is going to be visual except for the little bit of the neck that's sticking out. In theory, I could just paint just the neck and the area around it, and you would only see that from the top side. I'm just going to give the whole thing a coating, even though it's zinc coated. This will just give it another layer of protection. It may, 10 years from now, it might be peeling off a little or whatever, but probably not. It's probably going to be fine. This car is going to be indoors the rest of its life, so it's really not going to be a huge problem. And I'm just brushing it rather than spraying it, pretty much just for ease of use and cleanup. So this is going to take probably 2 coats each side, and I'm just going to do. I'm just trying to get started and get it on there. All right, guys, we're back on getting this tank together. Paint is dry. Like I said, I just did like a Rust-Oleum brush on paint. I got a couple of paintbrush hairs in it, and it's got some lines to it, but it was galvanized steel anyway, so this is really just to get it black so that we're not, we don't have a bright shiny silver gas tank under the hood with parts showing here and there. This particular gas tank, I'll put the link in the bottom because it was an excellent deal for what it was. And if you're looking for a mid-60s gas tank with the filler on this side, basically I think it's mostly 60s. I think it's all the way, I want to say these are 62 to 67, I believe, with the filler on this side, this smaller cap, but not the smaller one of 68. This actually has the correct filler neck. A lot of aftermarket gas tanks came with a smaller, like the 68 style cap, and you have to use a different cap. I didn't want that, so I looked for one that wasn't that way. So I'm going to get this thing assembled is what my plan is right now, so that it's ready to go in the car when we get to that stage. I have a lot of stuff happening right now with the car, and I get a lot of projects happening at once, so I'm trying to nail out some of these things that I can get done relatively easy. I picked up a new sending unit. This is a VDO, so it's a good quality one. There's plenty of $10, $15 ones on the market. I just don't, honestly, I don't see the point in buying something like that. I think this was 35 or 40. It's a VDO. I've tested it already to make sure that it was the correct correct ohms at full and at empty. So with any luck, I'm confident that this thing's going to work for us. You know, I suppose anything you buy, no matter what brand it is, you can end up with a dud. So it's kind of a one of them things that you just kind of hope for the best on a lot of stuff, and with any luck you get a good one. But so these 5 holes, there's 5 threaded holes in here. It looks like a 5-hole bolt pattern, but there is only one direction this goes so that the sending unit float angles the right way. And I'll be honest, I can't remember which way that is. Oh, we just got lucky. So in my particular case, I've got a handful of gaskets around. So in the case of these 2 different brand gaskets, this little tab goes towards the front of the car. So maybe that'll make it easier for someone, because you can go around 5 times before you hit the right one. And then let's see, the sending unit, same deal. You need to get the holes lined up here. And I don't remember which way it is, but that's all right. And a few positions are really close. Like it almost looks right, but you're not going to get the screws down in there. There we go. All right, so basically this float heads towards the fill on this, and we're gonna get this thing down in here and get it, if I can make sure I get it lined up. Yep. And we'll get this thing started. So I got a piece of wire made up with a loop on the end. I'm gonna go on this hole off to the side so that this can run in this direction. And the reason I'm not going on the straight one here, just the right ahead, because I got this terminal coming here, so it'll bring both of them around. They can kind of both run through here. I'll throw a piece of tape over that when it's once it's in place. That way I don't have to worry about it getting pulled or anything like that. And we'll see if we can tighten this down. And like anything that's got a crisscross pattern like this, like a 5-bolt thing, you want to kind of move around and don't just go in a circle. You're going to end up warping everything. So tighten it down, go across, just like you would tightening up a wheel or anything else. All right, so that takes care of that gasket and the sending unit being installed. The next thing I've got to do, and when we, just making sure you can see that, when we put this tank together and cut the neck down and everything, we put this fitting in, and I put this bracket here. What I have now is I've got a fitting to go in here. So I've got a compression fitting that is going to fit into that. And this is just a hardware store part. This particular one is 1/4 inch outside diameter to 1/4 inch pipe thread. And I've got my fitting that came with it there. And all that's going to happen here is we're going to take this thing, let me get this stuff out of the way, and let me get some Teflon tape on here. Should have some around here somewhere. You know those days where you just drop everything? It's one of those. All right, so we've got a wrench that's the right size to go on there, because you want to hold this bung. You don't want to start tightening this thing down and have that bung spinning all over the place. and loosening up everything, the gasket and everything else that's in there. So I'm gonna hang on to this and we'll tighten this down. And with any luck, I can get it so that it gets tight and is facing the way I need it to. Okay. All right, that's tight. And it gives me, I'm trying to just angle this direction, but continue a slope in. Because you want, the whole idea of this vent tube is any kind of gas that sloshes up into it, you want the gas to be able to exit the tank or exit the line and go back into the tank. So I've intentionally left this at a slight angle up. All right, so I got some copper nickel line out. And we're just gonna straighten out a section here so that we can start bending this up. And I'll cut it off. This is a 1/4 inch line, so it's a little thicker than typical Volkswagen and smaller car brake line, but it's the same idea. It's the same, basically the same thing. And all I'm looking for is a piece here that's big enough to do this job. So now we've got a piece of line. I'm gonna straighten this out the best I can. I don't have a line straightener for 1/4 inch because I don't do a lot of 1/4 inch tubing. I had this roll laying around because I bought a couple when I did a brake lines on a domestic pickup truck at some point. All right, so get that all straightened out. And basically how this works is you get a ferrule and you get some other hardware here that's all going to go in here and lock this in place. What I want to do is I want to come over, and I'm just going to do a lot of this probably by hand, but I want to come over this direction with it. Try not to flatten that out. Get me so that I'm in a straight line. And then from there, let's grab a marker of sorts. From here, I want to come up and I want to jump up right here, and somewhere down in here I want to start going back down. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a hump in this line so that any gas that makes it into this line will find its way back down into the tank. Okay, we've got this tube all set up. I've got the end of it cleaned. I've bent it the way I want it. I've actually stuck it into here once already just to make sure that it was going to fit. I need to deburr the end of it. Oops. Okay, so the way this works is you've got an end, you've got a ferrule that is this little thing that goes over it, and then you've got a nut. And this whole thing is I'm actually going to slide it through my bracket so I don't have to pull the bracket out. And then I'm going to get this down in here, and with any luck I'll be able to get it around the corner and get it in there. Okay. And all that's going to happen now is this is just going to get tightened up. And assuming I get everything straight and get it in the right way, we shouldn't have any air leaks or vapor leaks, let's call it, whatever we want to call it. And there's no need for any Teflon tape or anything on here. The nut is not actually sealing anything. It is that ferrule inside that it slides in and makes contact with the inside of this fitting, and that's how this type of a fitting seals up. Whoops, don't go too crazy. Probably hold on to my fitting so I'm not putting any torque on the one that's in the tank. Okay, should be good and tight there, and we should be all set. And if you can see this, let me see if you can see that. Yep. So if any fuel comes out of here, it's going to get into this tank, but it's going to hit this bump. I know it slopes down a hill, which you could, on occasion, get some come down here, which is no different than the stock Volkswagen just having a hose coming off the filler neck. But for the most part, this is going to stop all of the fuel that comes up here. This is in a position where it's higher than everything else on the tank for the most part, and I'm hoping it still fits under the hood and I don't need any adjustments on it. But so it should be good for the job. And then my next thing here that I'm gonna do, that pushed in, is I wanted to bring this over and I'm gonna cut this off at this spot. And then what'll happen is I'm gonna put a rubber hose on this end of it, and the rubber hose will come down and dangle underneath the car the same way the original Volkswagen one would have. All right, the last thing we have to do on this gas tank is get the outlet tube in. So first we've got, this is a Volkswagen style brass screen, copper, brass, whatever you want to call it. That goes in first. And this top edge is actually a basic, it's pretty much a crush washer, the same as you would have on like, I don't know, lots of different parts on Volkswagen engines use it like a crush washer like that. So that's what that is. Then we've got our tube, nut, and there's a gasket that goes on here. This gasket is supposed to go on the bottom side, and then the nut goes here. It seems kind of odd that it would go that way, but that is the way that, as best as I know, that's the way that that is supposed to go. And then this whole thing goes on here. And where's my fill? Fill's here, so this way. So I want this heading towards the passenger side, so we're gonna go this way with it. And we just tighten it down. You don't have to go crazy on it. And that's it. So from that point, we've got our gas tank. You want to be gentle with these when you're moving them around with the sending unit in there so you don't get it stuck. That's pretty much it. That's the gas tanks all ready to go. I'm going to put it off to the side for now until we're to the point where I can install it in the car. But right now we're ready to go with it. So thanks for watching this gas tank modification, whatever you want to call it, to go into a Dune Buggy or maybe a kit car or some other reason you would have to go through this. Or even if you're just putting together a regular gas tank, maybe you need a little information on the sending unit, the bottom tap, shortening the neck might not be useful for you in that case. But either way, thanks for watching.